Hello and welcome back to Explio Explores. This series zooms in on the 9 success factors for business transformation. These were identified through data gathered from over 1,000 senior decision makers in Explio's annual Business Transformation Index report. Thank you so much for the positive feedback on the series so far. We're glad to hear that it's actually helpful and adding value to business people across the world. Today we have another exciting episode around one of our other success factors in the Business Transformation Index, which is hitting solution reliability targets. And we thought it was really important today that we spend a bit of time defining what we mean by that. It's not as straightforward as some of the other success factors in this series. So as usual, what we want to do after we define what we mean by hitting solution reliability targets, we want to understand, why is this important? What are the common challenges that organizations and companies face when it comes to this success factor? And ultimately, and as always, what can you learn? What are the top tips that you can take away from the podcast today? We have an excellent episode for you today. We hope you enjoy. Today, our guest is Gopi. He's the Chief Disruption Officer at GEMS Education. And GEMS Education, for anyone who doesn't know, is the largest private education company in the world. So they now own, operate and manage over 250 schools globally. And among other things like leading group digital transformation, heading up IT security and EdTech ventures, Krish leads the charge to disrupt from within and to create efficient, sustainable, scalable and future-ready technology capabilities for the needs of education. And they see that as education for today and tomorrow. So they're always looking to the future in GEMS Education. He is recognised as a technology thought leader, having regularly featured in keynote speeches, cover stories and articles. He's won numerous awards for leadership, transformation expertise, product building and implementation services at global and regional events. He's also a member of the prestigious Global Council on Sustainable Development, UNESCO. So as Chief Disruption Officer, Krish is also responsible to ensure new ventures are as successful as possible. And that's why we're thrilled that he can join us today to talk about our success factor, hitting solution reliability targets. So Krish, you're very welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Great. We're delighted to have you. I mean, you have a wealth of experience in this realm and particularly around, digital disruption, which is a great combination, I suppose, when you're looking at focusing on hitting solution reliability targets. So today's podcast is all about mastering this success factor. How do we become better at hitting these solution reliability targets? So we'll start at the top. Why do you think hitting solution reliability targets is important?
Thank you so much. Let's begin by defining what is solution reliability. Now, solution reliability is how well we can trust a system to meet its stated and implied business needs in terms of availability, usability, functionality, and data integrity. Now, having gone through Explio's PTI 2022 report highlighting the 9 critical success factors for business transformation, I would rate hitting solution reliability targets as one of the most critical success factor, because that's the crux. That is the nucleus of everything. You can have the right digital mindset, a top management commitment, and the right technology execution. But if the solution is not reliable, it wouldn't meet the desired objectives. And if it is not scalable, it would not stand the test of time. And modern customers don't just wish there is fast and stable access to services, they almost demand it. While speed of implementation is important, customers place their trust in the services that just work. So let's look at some examples, right? In 2019, I suppose, a news broke out that a leading American multinational company dealing in cosmetics would be late in filing their annual report because of their recently implemented ERP system had multiple issues. You know what happened? The company's stock fell 6.9% in 24 hours. Now, another example of a global car company attempting to transform themselves by creating a new segment. The issue was that the new segment wasn't integrated into the rest of their ecosystem, whether it is marketing, whether it is communication, whether it is product lines. It faced huge quality concerns, and its stock price dropped dramatically that the CEO had to step down in a couple of years. So let me stress it again. The less reliable our systems are, the more we lose out on sales, brand recognition, and customer trust. And for services that are already competing on features and usability, reliability has become a key differentiator, almost like the only big differentiator between different similar services. Now, to understand the impact of reliability, we have ways to measure. There are a lot of meaningful, objective KPIs that comes into play, like KPIs like uptime, SLAs, mean time between failures, mean time to resolution, NPS scores, CSAT scores. They all tell us the state of our systems in terms of reliability. And it is absolutely important that they become a nucleus of the KPIs that you track in the system to ensure that we always achieve the desired results in business transformation.
Excellent. Yes. You've given some really good examples there. I might actually just run back over them because I actually missed a few of them as you went through them. I loved your point about how you measure the solution reliability. So, that's probably vastly different depending on what company, like the listener to this podcast, works for. So could you just run through the ones you just mentioned again, so I can kind of run through them? So you had NPS score, CSAT. What were the other markers?
So uptime is one. Critical ones, SLAs, and how significantly, successfully, consistently we meet those business SLAs, mean time between failures, which is MTBF, they call it, and mean time to resolution, which is called MTTR, and NPS scores and CSAT scores also tell us. That's a 360-degree view of how you would measure the reliability of your systems.
Brilliant. That's really great advice to have. I'm definitely going to look into some of them a bit more after today's podcast. I loved your examples there of just how damaging it can be to an organization who doesn't get this right, basically. But it does beg the question, what are the common challenges that these companies experience that they actually get to a point where they do release something that isn't right, that isn't quite there yet?
No, absolutely. Well, the saddest part is everything would become a challenge if we don't approach it carefully. Let's look at some of the areas which are absolutely critical and can become a huge challenge. The first and foremost challenge is about understanding the problem statement. The exam question that needs to be answered first, right? If we are not clear as to what the problem that we are solving, then everything else goes for a toss. The next challenge is understanding who are you solving that problem for? Who are your actual customers? And then comes the challenge of understanding what are their actual requirements? What are the real pain points that we ought to be solving? Now, getting those requirements and then trying to find a best fit solution could be a major challenge as well. The common problem that we all see is first designing the solution, then kind of force fitting the requirements into it, right? Okay, let's go for this core banking solution. Let's go for this ERP solution. Now tell me what requirements do you have? Well, I think that's suicidal. And it gets more interesting. It is a doomsday scenario if the solution meets only the stated functional and non-functional requirements, but completely ignores the implied requirements and the usability requirements. We absolutely have to understand that the actual business users are not the experts in providing every single requirement in a documented fashion. So it's important to carefully look at the usability requirements and implied requirements rather than just the stated requirements, right? And last but not the least, solution adoption and maximizing the utilization is a key challenge that needs to be addressed. And the way you address them are by giving them incentives, putting them in KPIs, and ensuring. So the utilization could be a big challenge as well if we don't look at it carefully. Again, I'm sorry to say, but reiterate, almost everything could become a challenge if we don't carefully plan it.
Of course, yeah, it really does come down to everyone understanding why you're doing it and how you're going to go about it. I'm interested to know, just speaking about the challenges here, digital transformation and digital disruption, which you'd be well versed in. This means that things are moving at such a fast pace that is it often a case that people are creating solutions that actually by the time it comes to releasing them, they're not as relevant anymore? Would that be something you've ever seen or experienced?
Oh, absolutely. Now, one is to ensure that you can be current and you can be agile and you provide solutions that stand the test of time. We've seen a lot of companies spend millions and millions of dollars. Unfortunately, because of all the challenges that I mentioned just before, the project just overruns. It massively, understates the requirement. It does not take care of the implied requirements, and eventually, when it goes to go live, people don't want it anymore because the situation has changed, the exam question has changed, or the exam question was always the same, but you didn't understood it. You didn't properly get that right. So you're right. Everything that we said as challenge has we've seen examples of the solution being totally unreliable or usable if we don't get this right.
Yes, definitely. And in terms, when I think of the 9 success factors in the Business Transformation Index, one of the ones that I suppose people would be less familiar with is this topic of hitting solution reliability targets. People who sit in IT would probably be very familiar with it, but as we know, these kind of the new digital transformation goes across departments. It doesn't just go, within the IT department. So with that in mind, how important is it to communicate around solution reliability to everyone internally so that they kind of fully understand it? Is that something that you find companies might miss off when they're planning?
You're absolutely right. And I think that is something where people do not talk a lot. It probably is a new word for a lot of business users out there. I think it is important that we communicate this at a highest level. The KPIs are set, and it is not technology that is 100% responsible for solution reliability, because it starts from having that exam question articulated clearly, and working through ensuring that the right requirements are stated and the solution is designed using users in mind and all these things. So it is important that we communicate this well in advance, educate the business users, have those KPIs, and consistently ensure that this is being reported in dashboards so that people understand the importance and also give a good listening to what needs to be done.
Yeah, and having that data as well in real time. I know from speaking to a couple of other guests on the podcast, to be able to support that communication style with some relevant real-time data seems to be a real game changer in terms of buy-in. It seems to just save people so much time, which is really interesting because, we're probably only just getting there. I think, even from Explio with our clients, we can see a huge shift to this real-time data, and then data for insights, data for purpose, data for, decision making, rather than, this data for the sake of gathering data, which I think is important. And then as well, I mean, that's a different topic, but you could go into it. You get into vanity metrics then when you have too many data points and people just want to pick the ones that seem to suit their story. But no, it's a powerful way, definitely, to communicate internally to the business. So if I bring it back to the Business Transformation Index research, so we were able to put together a tool in Explio with this data that we had gathered. And ultimately what we can do is we can, somebody today listening to this can go onto the website, answer 4 questions, and it will show you, it'll benchmark you against the other organizations who've taken the research. And we divide the companies into starters, strivers, and stars in terms of business transformation success. And overall, when it comes to hitting solution reliability, about 7 in 10 of them were hitting their targets, right? Which is quite good. But actually, if we broke it down into the companies that were starters, strivers, and stars, we saw a huge difference. So starters, only 32% of them, which is quite shocking. Less than a third were hitting these targets, and stars seem to have completely mastered it, up on the 88%. So I suppose my question is how is there such, in your opinion, a stark difference when you look at the kind of broader business landscape in this, and what can be done, I suppose, to help that?
I think you're absolutely right. It's also about the industry you are in. the kind of digital transformation that your industry as a whole has seen, your company as a whole has seen, etc. So it is important. You asked me a question on how do we overcome this critical element for your business transformation. It's important to have a long-term vision, yet achieve as quick as near-term wins as possible, and have the right mix of people and process and technology, elements that would help your business transformation. Now, let me give you a real-time example that we have done in our current company. Right, education as an industry, as we all know, is being transformed. There is growing awareness between educators and parents that today's curriculum needs to evolve to meet tomorrow's reality. Now, being a crowded marketplace, you would have thought that education technology would have answered all those questions. Now, the impact of edtech in the brick and mortar schools isn't absolutely where it should be. And during pandemic, we realized the fragility of our edtech ecosystem as it did not meet the demands of education sector at all. Learning loss of 1.8 trillion hours of students across the globe will have impact for centuries to come. Now, the need for the hour is not those spaghetti architecture, those 60, 70,000 edtechs put together, wired in a weird format. It is about having integrated technology solutions that can streamline the end-to-end processes all the way from K-12 to lifelong learning to the full-fledged of education, utilize data in improving learning and teaching outcomes while providing a seamless experience to all the stakeholders. Now, we are GEMS Education, the largest private K-12 educator in the world. Now, how did we react to this crisis? And how did we support this education transformation? Now, thanks to our sustained investments in technology, we've been building our own IP for many, many years. And our technology IP, all-in-one integrated platform, designed by educators for educators, is focused on three things: helping students learn better, teachers to teach better, parents to become more engaged, and by doing also, our education becomes as efficient as it could be. Right? Now, our suite of products has resulted in the last decade or so in enhanced end-to-end digital products and services that are reliable, consistent pedagogy experience, increased efficiencies, driving greater internal and external customer satisfaction, and saving cost while doing all that by reducing the reliance on external solutions that are out there. Now, when pandemic came, schools across the globe were struggling because they had to suddenly become from a brick and mortar way of doing stuff into a digital way of doing stuff. But in GEMS Education, we were ready. We switched to the remote learning just like within days, and we continued throughout the pandemic with 96% of satisfaction rating from our students, unheard of numbers, and 95% of satisfaction rating from our parents. As an independent survey from LEK puts it, our parents were 15% more satisfied than any other parents in Middle East region. Now, all our schools were rated as the highest digital maturity by regulators in the countries that we operated in. So how did we go about creating a reliable technology solution that consistently hit the solution reliability targets and hit the user experience standards by tough standards? Now, to begin with, we conducted various focus groups, teacher, parent, admin, student focus groups, surveys on talking to our stakeholders in helping us understand how would their lives become simple. How would we make a student learn better? How would we make a teacher teach better? How would a parent be more engaged in the studies? How would a school become more efficient, etc.? Then we spent loads and loads of time with external experts who are who's who of education, who's who of technology. We adopted a research-based approach in evaluating how to build a solution that meets the stated and implied needs of all our stakeholders within one single umbrella. Then testing it extensively, adopting an agile format, testing it extensively to ensure that the end users are part of the overall program itself, to validate their requirements much in advance, and to change the solution along the way if we have to test, stand the test of time. How do we enable new modules, new technologies, such as exponential technologies like AR, VR into the solution, etc. Right? And then you form a change champion in every single entity, every single school, every single department, which is a mix of technologists and educators to ensure that there is seamless adoption across our schools and there is maximum utilization, right? We kind of added adoption as a key KPI for relevant teams within the organization because it needs to be inbuilt in whatever they do. Now, a dedicated help desk, because biggest problem in a reliability, numbers coming down is you don't know whom to reach if you have a problem, right? It could be a user training issue, it could be a simple understanding issue, but if you don't understand it, then it goes into a bad shape. So a dedicated help desk is it was established to look into customer issues, report, resolve customer tickets. A knowledge base was created and given it to our parents so that they can try and understand it, solve them themselves. An SLA-based support structure was put in place so that we can prioritize and resolve issues as and when they come. Most importantly, a beautiful detailed product roadmap was published to the end users, the teachers, the education leaders, for them to see what is coming and for them to recommend even product improvements. If you knew that there are people looking at improving the product and there are certain features that are coming up in the future, and you are able to add your own points there, then the comfort that the users have are absolutely immense. And I think the results of everything that I said are for here to see. We've got consistently above 90% when it comes to internal customer satisfaction and external customer satisfaction. We are very proud of our GEMS, intellectual property journey, and that is what has created a entity called Tomorrow, a separate edtech entity, which I'm the CEO of, to see if we can even make this a solution that we can even externally go to market with at some point in time in the future.
Which would be amazing, wouldn't it? Because just think of the possibilities that we could experience globally if education was available to people regardless of their backgrounds or their upbringing or where they live in this world. Like it's inspiring. It's really exciting. It's an exciting time. So I look forward to hearing more about Tomorrow. I'll be following that one keenly. What struck me there, that's a phenomenal story, first off. And I know from being with Explio as well, we had the upper hand, like without sounding without gloating, when it came to the adjustments that we needed. And it was the same with our clients. We're in an area where we've invested for years in IT and our infrastructure, and particularly change management and agile ways of working was already something that us and most of our clients would have been familiar with, but it definitely became very clear, like organizations like GEMS really rose to the top following the COVID-19 pandemic because of all the change it brought. And you could see, big name organizations who you would have assumed had good, strong investment in technology really scramble. And it was quite striking, I thought, in the aftermath kind of the lockdowns and stuff like that. It took them a long time to catch up. But in fairness, most companies really did change and flex and pivot, and we got very used to that word pivot, didn't we, for about a year? But yeah, it's had so much of an impact, I think, on everyone. It kind of, there's no such thing as just going in, I suppose, and doing your job like 9 to 5, same thing anymore. Everyone is involved in transformation now, even in departments where they thought they'd just be doing their job, kind of see them to retirement. And I think that's a good thing. It can only be a good thing for people.
Yeah.
So I want to pick up on two things because I think they're good things to pull out for people who are trying to learn from your experience today. One is a commonality. So you were talking about, I loved your idea of the product roadmap and being able to sell that into the the stakeholders within your business. And it brought me back to a point that was made previously in one of our episodes about when it comes to successful transformation. One of the key patterns that we're seeing is that it's not about communicating internally, it's about marketing internally. Sure. So you're not just sharing information. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think, any great product needs to be marketed, whether it is for internal or external customers. And I think everybody has an expectation because people came from different backgrounds, people come from different, companies before, etc. You need to have a great internal marketing strategy, as good as your external marketing strategy, because your stakeholders has to be constantly reminded of how this solution is going to help. And I also go beyond that particular thing in making them as people who would market the solution, right? Becoming an ambassador, making them, to become an ambassador is a critical thing as well. And I used to say this story. I used to say, our educators are not the people who come to a movie and watch that movie and say, hey, that is good, this particular thing is good. They are co-creators of the IP. They are creating the movie together. So this success story, if you consider as a movie, it's created from a great effort from our educators, our admins, our parents, teachers, etc. And marketing plays a crucial role in this.
Yeah, and collaboration. Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic example. I'm really delighted that you shared it with us today. And there was one other thing that I picked up on as well, was the amount of research you did. And I loved hearing that, because people could assume that, when we were in the pandemic, it was almost like a panic situation. So it was almost like a crisis. And sometimes in crisis, the human reaction is to become a bit hyper and start doing things really quickly and just, feeling like you need to act now. And yeah, I really thought that was a really good point about how your success was made, is that you still maintained that we stuck with our consumers, we stuck with our own people by doing that research.
Absolutely. And I think I just want to reiterate that it's okay to ask help. Sometimes it just becomes a blocker. Why, we are, big in our industry, we are big in our country. Why should we ask? I think it is okay to ask help, and it's absolutely critical to talk to the like-minded people, talk to industries, companies that are going through the similar digital transformation, because you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You absolutely need to get the learnings from it. And, there are beautiful stories out there, beautiful success, stories out there that you can take inspiration from.
So I think we've covered a lot there in the challenges. There's so much from what you've shared that I think people can pick up on. And as I spoke to you before about this podcast, what we really want is the listeners and people who are kind of ambitious business people to really learn from other people's experiences. So we like to finish each episode of the podcast with a top tips section. And what that is it's a bringing together of all of the things that we've talked about today, and just summarizing it in a way that we can say to anyone listening today, these top tips, you can implement this into your way of working from now on, and it'll help you master this transformation success factor. So Krish, over to you. What would your top tips be for hitting solution reliability targets?
Let me state three things that I think are the critical ones that we need to keep in mind, right? The number one is customer is the king. With evolution of technology, emergence of new age customers, etc., let's put customer centricity at the core of our businesses. A bad customer experience could be devastating for the brand, and today experience is the brand, right? So I think starting with the customer experience and work backwards the technology is the right way to do. So customer is the king is the first thing. Second, managing change is key. Now, how often have you heard the statement, culture eats strategy for breakfast? No matter how detailed your strategy is and how solid your strategy is, if people executing it don't nurture the appropriate culture, projects will fail. Culture isn't about comfy chairs and happy hours at the office. It's about the ways your employee respond to various challenges and how they treat their partners, their colleagues, their customers, and each other, right? So, I think it's important to build a culture of openness, a culture of innovation, a fail fast, fail early, learn from mistakes kind of a mindset. So the second thing is managing change and having a right culture. The third one is one size fits all syndrome to be avoided. Now, each organization is unique in its maturity levels. What might work well in one organization need not benefit another one. So don't force fit your solution, or a strategy, to what the questions that you are solving. I think it is wise to choose between modernizing your core business and improving it, or creating an entirely new digital proposition depending on your business realities, digital maturity levels, etc. So always remember that one size does not fit all in most of the scenario. So it is about horses for courses, having your own business transformation effort and what works for you. Understanding what works for you is important. So those are all three quick tips that I would want to share.
Brilliant tips. And actually, it's funny you say about the customer experience. When we did the research, we surveyed over 1,000 people last year, and they were all director level and above, or 70% of them were, I should say. And for the first time ever in the history of us doing this data, customer experience came up as the number one business priority with 47%. And that came, just to put it in perspective, above increasing productivity, above transforming ways of working, above increasing profits. So you can really see that that's something that people have completely shifted to, and everything now is being built around the customer, which can only be a good thing for businesses. Yes. And for customers. It's easier to sell a purpose as well when you're able to put it in the shoes of a customer, whether it's an internal or external customer. And I also loved your point about one size fits all, and avoiding that, because for anyone that's not aware, Expleo actually years ago started out as just a quality business. So we would partner with organizations just on the quality aspect of transformation, and we can definitely vouch for that the differences, even if you're to take two telcos, the differences in the quality approach for whatever products or transformation programs they're on, like miles and miles apart, like built completely differently. So I think that's something that people probably wouldn't be aware of or mightn't be aware of. So thank you for highlighting that. Brilliant points there, Krish. Thanks. It's been such a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us on Expleo Explores.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate having me here.
And that's a wrap on episode 5 of Expleo Explores. Thank you so much to Krish for his time today and for sharing his experiences and his wisdom with the listeners and myself. Thank you for tuning in to Expleo Explores. You'll find the Business Transformation Index and the other podcasts in this series on our website. Just go to expleo.com/podcast. We'd love to hear from you, so do join in the conversation. Just use the hashtag Expleo Explores on social media. So we're just past the halfway mark of our 9-part series around successful transformation. So we'd welcome any and all feedback around the series. If it's something that you think is really valuable, if it's something you'd like us to do again in the future, or if you think the 9-part series would be enough, we'd love to hear from you. So next week, I'm really excited about the topic that we're going to tackle around successful transformation. It's all about being more adventurous with automation. So this is something, and I'll share a little more insight next week, that struck me when I was looking out for guests for this podcast series. It was one of the harder ones to fill, which I think speaks a lot to how advanced organizations actually are in practice when it comes to automation. But we have a great guest, Veronica Breen, who is at Novartis, and she is head of data science and analytics there. And Veronica is going to speak to us about what it really means to be more adventurous with automation. So it's one you really don't want to miss. In the meantime, we hope you have a great week.